Thanks very much. So, the fireworks, rockstar introduction, first session, first panel, first Next Pharma Summit. No pressure at all, guys. Just relax. Should be fine. I think we'll start off. Nat, we're talking before. There's a famous rock star called Bob Dylan, and he wrote a song that said, "The times they are changing." Kind of seems like an understatement right now.
So that's not a question, Steve, but hello, yes.
Yeah.
It's a comment and I agree. What a privilege to be here. Let me start by saying that, and to be here with my esteemed friends on stage. The times they are changing. I'm going to quote my friend Adam Roach, who talks to me about the spectrum that we feel, which is the roller coaster of optimism to outrage that can happen, in 1 hour, in a day, over months, over not. And I think that when I think about the times changing, there's a responsibility for us as an industry sector for this country, where investment in medicines is declining, when we have a geopolitical context that is, what word can I use?
You don't need to be careful here.
Particular, thanks Joana. And we have extraordinary talent. We have the best scientists in the world, and yet we struggle on how we find a path for the best medicines in the world to reach our country. It takes too long, and Australians continue to miss out. We have a world of misinformation on a medical front, that when you do get a diagnosis of cancer and you go online and you end up with green juices, I ask myself, where has the scientific evidence gone? So again, optimism to outrage. I start on that note because I absolutely think there's a lot to talk about today, but I remain optimistic because we're an incredible bunch of people, like you said, Steve, and I think we have the world at our feet and we have an opportunity to do something with this moment.
Thank you very much, Nathalie. So the title of this session is called Australia's Make or Break Moment. It sounds quite sensational. Owen, is it? And what makes it that?
Well, first of all, can I say hello, thank you for inviting me, Steve, and lovely to see everybody. And can I agree that I think it's a great idea for us to have more of these sorts of summits and get-togethers, because it is something that Australia lacks. And one of the themes I'd like to talk a bit about today is the fact that we need to come together more, that we need to build a more collaborative industry here in Australia, that we need to, I think, self-generate a better, more cohesive ecosystem, as other countries are doing, and I'll talk in a moment about how we might do that. But is it a make or break moment? I think it probably is, for lots of reasons, most of which sit outside Australia. The reason it's perhaps make or break is the scale of opportunity for investment other than in Australia, in our industry, is growing exponentially. And in China, of course, is cited so often as being one of the exemplars of that explosion of creativity and innovation in our industry. It's probably the best one. I think just a few stats, I won't give you too many, but 10 years ago, I think there were between 60 and 100 NCEs being developed in China. There's now 1,200. 30% of all drug development currently underway is happening in China, and 35% of all the large pharma deals done in the last 2 years have been done with biotech companies and molecular entities coming out of China. So that's just one illustration of the explosion of opportunity that exists. And therefore, it's a unique moment when for our CEOs in their headquarters, wherever they are, there are just a panoply of options as to where they want to put their dollars. And Australia needs to be not just at the back of their mind, at the forefront of their mind when they're thinking about. And the reality, as Nat was alluding to in a moment, we're not. We're not at the forefront of their mind. We're not yet at the back of their minds, but we're edging backwards, not forwards. And we need to do lots of things, including building this better ecosystem and connections between ourselves here in Australia and building our collective muscle as a life sciences sector here in Australia in order to push ourselves to the forefront. So in that sense, it is make or break, because we could go further backwards.
It's a very good point. There's the audience, you're probably going to hear a few select buzzwords over the next 2 days, one of which is AI and digital innovation. So I'd like to maybe just refer to the panel, and anybody can take this one, but in terms of make or break, and Owen, you said there's a wide breadth of opportunities and paths to explore. In terms of AI and digital, what can the industry do to ensure that we make this a make moment and not a break moment? Does anybody have any thoughts on that one?
I mean, I can give it a try. But what Owen said, and hello everyone, it's wonderful to be here, and seeing colleagues across the board, cross-functional, as we say, is always good. So great that this forum is here. I was wondering on the question of make and break, and if I can give quick comments to what Owen and Nathalie already said, and completely agree with them, is if the conference name is Next, and when we say make or break is now, so maybe probably the session could be now 25. From what Owen said, and if I add to where we are today from a political or geopolitical standpoint, I think it's the time where for Australia it's make and break. Yeah, to what Owen said, as to really play our cards appropriate in our global offices, but also for the patients and the communities in Australia, right? Where we are languishing, I think it's a make and break moment for sure. On the AI piece, I mean, to the AI, I think the foundation of AI is there in every company, and I always say, should we train and get training on AI sitting on our offices and to theories, or should we give the football and play the game, right? In the sense of licenses, and I know some companies are giving license to everyone. We are also looking at it. How should we have a roadmap of AI? AI could be transformational, but that's across industry, not just for Australia specifically, where we can a little bit pilot around it, yeah. But AI is in our lives every day, in our work life every day.
Maybe I can also comment on the make or break. First of all, hello to everyone here. Again, congratulations for being brave enough to buy a ticket to the first Next Summit in Australia. I have to say, thank you for the compliment of us being rock stars, but we're not rock stars until we have that shirt. Yeah.
There'll be merch on sale in the foyer after lunch.
I need one of those shirts, I have to say. I took a picture. I just wanted to bring a different perspective to the make or break moment. Having worked in the industry in several countries around the world, I can definitely say that no health system is perfect. I'm an optimist myself, Nat, too. So I think we really have and truly have an enormous responsibility to go from the, how do you call it, desperation? What was the word? Outrage, I love it. From outrage to being optimistic in the future. And the reason is simple. The reason is because the purpose why we're here is patients. So we actually don't have the option to go any other way rather than to be optimistic about the future and just, rather than break it, make it for patients. But I also think, to your point, Owen, Nat, and Manoj as well, we are at a tipping point in Australia. To add some of the stats, 3 out of 4 medicines that are available overseas are not available in the PBS. That also says that because I'm Aussie now, we invest less than other G20 countries per capita in innovative medicines. And it's not me inventing that, it's the data that actually says that. And the question that we need to ask ourselves is this sustainable in the future? That's one. And I guess, we would agree that it's probably not. But then if it's not, how do we work together? And I think that's the objective of these kinds of forums. How do we work together? Not only pharma, but how do we go out there externally with external stakeholders to advocate for, first of all, HTA reform? And I think we're doing that. We're on the right path. Maybe we need to accelerate implementation moving forward. But also for it to be sustainable in the future, there needs to be a higher investment. And I say investment very intentionally because today it's seen as a cost, but it needs to be seen as an investment for the future. going back to our purpose, because we're talking about patients, right? So what's more important than that? So I guess that's my invitation as we open this forum. To connect, to collaborate. I love the cross-functional theme as well. But if we don't go out there and have a unified voice as a pharma industry, we're not going to make it.
It's a really, really good point. Thank you, Joana. You touched on now like innovation and culture, collaboration and things like this. I don't want to be the mean moderator, but when I do attend a lot of these events overseas, there's such great energy in the room. A lot of people have these lightning bolt moments, but you meet them a year later and nothing happens. And it's always back, well, my KPIs are still the same. We don't get measured on anything that with innovation. I can't do it. I still want to get my bonuses. And these ideas just dissipate. How, as general managers, can you create a sense of innovation that's recognised, encouraged and rewarded in your organisations? And
Steve's looking at me. Steve and I have known each other for 25 years, so we get to tease each other a little. What a big question. And in the spirit of saying what needs to be said, I do think that we're way too comfortable. It's interesting, I've been in this game for close to 30 years. I hate to say it, but it's true. And we've all been through the expansion and contraction. We're redundant one day, we're growing the next, and it's accelerating, which says to me that there's work that needs to be done for our ability to remain viable. But what does it mean? How do we build that accountability? How do we ensure? I think we've got to recognise that being uncomfortable is growth. Having courage to have a conversation with an average Aussie punter is important. We're the experts in this room, but this is the fishbowl to the point Joanna's made. And I think it's incumbent upon us to find our voice, to have the courage, to be educated on our issues, and be willing to have the barbecue conversation. Because imagine if each one of us had 10 conversations with our mum, our sister, our best friend, just to help them understand that we are missing out as a nation on the best medicines available in the world to other countries who get medicines before we do, who are poorer nations than we are. And it is shocking to me, as a rich country, that is not understood in the average layman's minds. And not till you're that person with that diagnosis or it's your family that you're facing a reality that product's in Germany or Japan or Canada or Lithuania or Mexico, so not even the G20 or OECD, and we don't have it here in Australia. How is that possible? So there's where accountability lies. In my mind, it's incumbent upon us as leaders of our industry, and we're all leaders in this room. It's not a title, it's how we show up and how we have impact and influence on our stakeholders. But the audience for me is the average Aussie. That's, for me, I think the opportunity for us culturally as an industry to raise a higher bar and get serious about being educated about the problem that we're facing.
it's an excellent point. I wonder if Owen wanted to respond to that.
Well, I don't know if it's too early in the morning to start talking about cocktails, Steve. However,
anything goes at next.
I'll be honest, it's never too early for me to start talking about cocktails. But I think the answer on that question about innovation is that you need to, as a leader, have a smart cocktail of, obviously you're going to have boring governance, systems, guardrails, because we're a highly regulated industry and therefore we need to be careful about making sure we adhere to all the regulations that govern. But you've also got to have mixed into that cocktail, muddled in a real sense of adventure and can-do. And as leaders, I don't think so much celebrate failure, but accept failure. And then the critical thing for me is keep people resilient in your teams, because innovation is really difficult. And we're not talking about innovation in terms of the leadership that we offer in the medicines we develop. I think our broader companies, of course, that's the heartbeat of the innovation. I mean innovation in our business practices, in the ways in which we commercialize, in the ways in which we engage in the market. That's the piece of the business that we're responsible for, as you know. And it is easy for people to get ground down by that cycle of expansion and contraction and the fact that you can't get stuff over the line. And Australia is a hard market to innovate in some regards because there isn't a huge amount of investment and there's a long-standing sense that we're going to try and ration access to new medicines, but it is possible. And I will choose as an example, we had a great innovation that BMS led just last week in terms of getting access for immuno-oncology products for a much broader range of patients. Very innovative approach taken by PBAC. It took 9 years to land that deal. It was first mooted in late 2016, I think, maybe 2017. And therefore, I've got people in my team who've been actively working to get that over the line for almost a decade. They are grayer, they are older, but they stayed resilient throughout that. And that, for me, is a fantastic lesson that if you've got a great idea and you want to pursue it and you know it's to the benefit of patients and to the benefit of the ecosystem and to your company, then it's worth pursuing. But you've got to be stalwart and stick the course.
And BMS and the whole team should be congratulated for that milestone announcement recently. It's showing that change can happen with the right people and the right mindset. So talking about that, that's a huge win. And we do have big wins in Australia. So we spoke before, we're kind of an afterthought, global's blind spot, there's a panel later. But does anybody have any thoughts just in terms of what we can do to influence from Australia, influence global strategies and become true innovation hubs and not just local deployment executors, localization teams? What can we do?
I mean, from our perspective, Australia is a unique country, right? It's a mature, reimbursed market. It offers it's a geography where you can do experiments. No one is looking at it. By the time our Germany office opens up, we are closing down. So if we have done something terribly wrong or terribly innovative, I think that ecosystem in Australia thrives. And we have been doing that. We were, some of you would know, that we have changed our operating model. We have absolutely gone away from traditional mindset in an organization from a bureaucratic lens to a relatively flat, more empowered, autonomic organization. And I guess one reason why Australia was chosen as a front runner was essentially because we saw that from a talent, from people, from ecosystem, and what Australia offers across the board is very, very innovative. Yeah? And how can we really put that through in the funnel where global learns what Australia has done and then scale it up? The only thing which lacks in Australia is scale, but the ability to innovate, the ability to drive new ideas in the organization, and the receptiveness in our teams in Australia is amazing. And we have not seen, at least I have not seen in other countries which I have worked in, right? And that creates an ecosystem internally, but also externally. And to some of the points which Owen was mentioning on clinical trials or the state of the art is essentially because of that, because there are thought leaders, research institutes, absolutely ready to run with those ideas if we get that, yeah? And that's the reason why, some of the cutting-edge clinical trials are coming to Australia. We are doing a cell and gene trial, which is only happening in 3 countries globally, US, Canada, and Australia. So in that sense, Australia portrays that and has that. I think it's in our ambition, how do we carry that to our global headquarters and position it correctly? And similarly, in our advocacy with the external folks, not just the government, but the external, is to really position in that sense what it merits to and be agile with that.
Yeah, and maybe I can also add what I've seen, and I've been in Australia for a year and a couple of months already, and what I've seen in the culture, in the talent, in the Australian community is this massive learning mindset. This ability, to your point, to be resilient, to always challenge ourselves and see, what have I done? How can I do it better? And obviously that's all underpinned by the external environment, right? We work in pharma. Our mission, our purpose is to have, bring access to patients. And if that's tough, which it is, clearly, then we need to force ourselves and challenge ourselves to, each step of the way, think how can we do it better? How can we do it faster? How can I challenge the status quo? And I think that's embedded, I can compare because I've worked in other markets, so that's embedded in the culture and it's quite special. So to your point, how can we influence? I do think that compared to other markets, Australia's talent, it's recognized worldwide. So you see, talent in pharma moving to other countries worldwide and actually excelling, doing really well. Because if you excel under an environment like we have in Australia with the challenging, external pressures that we have, then you go into other countries. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy because, as I said, different healthcare environments have different challenges, but they do really well. And I think that's an opportunity for us as leaders to nurture, to cultivate, and to continue enhancing. Because in the end, the organization is as good as the people we have. So that's a great opportunity to leverage the capabilities we have in Australia for good.
Really good point you make. You see the companies overseas littered with Australians that cut their teeth in the local market here and have gone on to extraordinary careers on the global stage. Righto, we've got 4 minutes left. It's about a minute each. Manoj, you wanted to talk about, we should call this the Now Conference, but let's just for a moment go forward a little bit. Let's look at 5 years from now, 2030. For each of you, what does success look like for our local Australian industry in 2030? What's one element that you think we should be successful at?
I think from my perspective, I would say 3 things. The patients have got access to all the innovative assets. The communities do not have the burden of healthcare, and it does not become an election agenda. It's a given. Healthcare is a given thing for the communities. And lastly, for the industry and for all of us who are part of that industry becomes an attractive place to work. I mean, when I speak to fresh graduates, they don't want to join pharma industry, because they think it's a big pharma, it's a dirty pharma, it's a very archaic, old traditional. They want to go to agile companies, they want to work in tech, they want to work in, in companies which offers them much more. So I think as an industry in Australia, if we can go to any uni and they raise their hand, yes, we are looking to work in pharma industry. I think that's what I would look at in 5 years.
I think we'd have doubled spending on innovative pharmaceuticals and on healthcare more broadly. I think we'd have got world-leading access to the most innovative medicines and thereby secured the healthiest population in the world. I think we should have those sorts of ambitions. I think we'd have a government that saw our sector as being absolutely a foundational sector for the future health of the Australian economy. I think we would have a life sciences strategy in which we were joined up in the entire ecosystem, and a life sciences council perhaps to guide that in Australia. And I think we would be thought of on the lips of all of the politicians here in Australia whenever they're thinking about the people they want to partner with.
Joana, in order.
Yeah, for me, similar. I really imagine and envision a country where we have access to innovative medicines at the same time as other markets. I think it's something that we deserve as a country, and that patients deserve first and foremost. And for that to happen, I hope we have implemented our HTA reform by now. What do you think, Owen?
I wasn't that ambitious.
Yeah.
For 10 years at least.
But, for it really to be sustainable, I'm going to go back to one comment I made. I think health needs to be seen as an investment and not a cost. If health is seen as an investment, it's linked to productivity, it's linked to economic returns, then, it is sustainable, not for the next 5 years, but for the future. So what I really envision is a healthcare system that is sustainable for the industry, as it was said before, but mostly for patients.
And how do I do this?
Just to interrupt, Nat, you promised controversy as well. You promised some hard hitting. You've got 1 minute to floor the audience and recover and get off.
Are you for real, Steve? I absolutely concur with everything that's been said, beautifully said. And I talked about the grim side, but let me be clear, this is the best talent that we have. I believe that Australia delivers the best talent in the world. As I said, I think our scientific community is the best in the world. So to add to my colleagues, for me, if an Aussie is the first country, an Aussie in this country gets that medicine that they need as soon as it's available, that's the ultimate scorecard for us. That we're not waiting even 60 days after registration, that it's registered and it's in the hands of the Australian who needs it the most. on top of everything that everyone else has said. Thanks, Steve.
Hear, hear. And that's a tremendous way to end off the panel and a good challenge to the audience to work towards that type of vision in 5 years' time. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank the rock and rollers of the pharmaceutical companies, the general managers panel.